Welcome to the DeFinity Market Strategy. I'm Paul Rodriguez of ThinkTrading.com, and I'm here with Manu Choudhary, who's the CEO of DMA Link and the co-founder of DeFinity. How are you, Manu? You've come back from a trip from Russia, haven't you?
I have, Paul. Yeah, not too bad. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good. Did you have any vodka at all? What was the weather like there?
It was very cold. I think it was -5 pretty much every day, with a wind chill of maybe another couple of degrees, so probably -10, -15.
Wow.
It was cold. It was great. Really good opportunities. I think they seem to be changing their stance on crypto, which is really interesting. And everyone I spoke to and everyone I met basically understands exactly where the future lies in terms of the transition away from traditional fiat FX to more digital FX. So yeah, it was very positive. It was really good to actually hear some of these banks talk about where they saw the lay of the land. Interestingly, the central bank were not overly keen in having a chat with me, which is fine. They essentially said that they built their own CBDC and didn't really want to discuss it and didn't want to tell me what blockchain they used, which again, I guess they're going to publicize it at some point. So yeah, productive trip, and yeah, a lot of very, very smart people, very focused on crypto, and they made a really interesting comment, which was, if you look at the CEOs of some of the most successful fintechs, a lot of them actually are either Russian or of Russian lineage. And it's a shame that they leave the Russian Federation in order to pursue this, just because, again, they may or may not be very supportive. But I think this is changing. I think we're going to see a big change in Russia over the next year or two.
Definitely. I mean, they've certainly got the kind of tech focus, and they're smart enough for this sort of stuff. It's absolutely right down their street. But obviously doing it in Russia is much more problematic. So they probably have to set up businesses maybe outside, but
Yeah, it is. It is. I think the biggest thing is that whilst crypto is not technically illegal, so it's legal to own and it's legal to trade, you can't do it within the confines of the Russian Federation. So therefore you have to trade with accounts outside. Right. It just makes it slightly more challenging. And I think it just puts a lot of people that would ordinarily trade it off actually doing it.
Yes.
But speaking of regulations, do you want to hear something quite funny? I heard something hilarious the other day. So after China's all-out war on crypto mining, that they've been beating people with a 2x4,
they've said to people that they should grass people up who they've seen
I know,
mining crypto,
which is crazy. Do you want to hear something hilarious?
Go on.
They have just realized that tax receipts from those crypto miners have decreased.
Goodness
me.
My
goodness. I don't know what to say. So now they're looking, well, maybe we need to ask the people whether we should really have banned crypto mining. So they're actually they're asking people, which is surprising, A, because do the Chinese government give two shits about the people of China? I don't think they do, but what do I know? And B, that they're actually asking them whether they should reinstate people's ability to start mining crypto again. It's just, the mind boggles what these people are smoking, that they cannot understand that if you destroy a business where, by the way, China, you were dominating the entire market, and you managed to destroy that overnight.
75%, something like that, of all the mining,
I think it might have been slightly low, but yeah, it was something. It was certainly above 2/3. It was a huge number, number. And this was causing anxiety, certainly in Europe and the States, because you have this concentration risk with China, which is now gone. So yeah, anyway, that's quite interesting. And then again, speaking of regs, again, my favorite person, Gary Gensler, I'm not going to talk about him today because he hasn't said anything. So I don't know whether he's on holiday or what he's doing, Gary. I wish you all the best, but I'm glad I'm not seeing your name in the media. But his counterpart at the CFTC, who regulate commodities, weirdly said something strange on Monday this week that I didn't really understand. So Gary kept saying basically 70% of cryptocurrencies aren't securities, and then he backtracked and said actually 70% of them were securities. And now the acting chairman of the CFTC has basically said, I don't know where these numbers are coming from, 60% of all crypto are actually commodities, including stable coins. Now, I can kind of see where he's coming from in the stable coins. A stable coin is more like a commodity than it is a security. So Gary's whole thesis that USDT is basically a security, I've got to be honest, I don't know what on earth he's thinking, but that makes no sense. And he knows better. But to classify as a commodity is a bit odd. But what this basically means is that this would radically change the tax status. Now, this is just a comment from the outgoing chairman.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is actually quite pro crypto. So this is not them looking to change legislation or anything else. It's just him acknowledging publicly. I think about a month or two before his departure, it's weird timing. That actually this is the entire crypto market is principally a commodity market.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, I mean, that's strange for a number of reasons. I mean, it reminds me of the quote that 90% of statistics are made up on the spot, and that feels like they're just saying that because ever since crypto's been on the scene, people have been trying to define it. Is it a commodity? Is it a currency? They're saying no, it's not a currency for X, Y, Z. It's not a commodity. So what is it?
So I think they probably will push ahead with regulation of stablecoins. That's pretty easy to do because you can essentially make all of the issuers essentially convert into banks, so they're beholden to banking regulation, and also FATF, which is the Federal Action Task Force, who love basically spoiling people's fun, and making sure everyone does KYC, ID, and V, and gives all those bits and pieces of information to the IRS, so everyone can be extorted by a government agency. So yeah, in terms of other bits and pieces of news that are quite interesting. So early this week, we saw Walmart announce that they were going to install 8,000 Bitcoin ATMs.
Oh, brilliant.
Across their which is a huge number, but it's not quite what I thought. I thought they were actually putting in brand new ATMs across 8,000 of their stores in the US. That's not what they're doing. They partnered with Coinstar. You know that company that makes those large green machines that you stick your change into.
Oh yeah.
A supermarket. Yeah, so they're partnering with them, and they're just adapting the technology. So instead of issuing you notes or gift cards, you can get Bitcoin.
Oh right.
So it's actually really smart. So very, very smart way of doing it. And I'm guessing the capital outlay will be the square root of not a lot. So yeah, well done, Walmart. I think that's a really cool strategy.
Yeah, be interesting to see if anybody follows suit. So brilliant.
Yeah. I can see that happening. And then another interesting thing. So Facebook changed their name earlier this week, or was it yesterday? Maybe yesterday. I forget when.
Yesterday.
Yeah, to basically to Meta.
Yeah.
And
Meta on Facebook.
It's interesting that they've done this, but again, I think they've realized the opportunity, and they've obviously partnered with Coinbase to also start doing crypto payments within the Facebook ecosystem. But it's funny they're changing to push themselves more along the fact that they are building to the metaverse, which they've never done before. They've never expressed any interest. And is this just another mechanism for Facebook to steal more of your personal information? Yes, probably. Is it going to succeed? I mean, good luck competing with Decentraland, is all I can say to Facebook. I haven't used Facebook for about 10 years. I don't know anyone that uses Facebook anymore. So,
so they're trying to reinvent
congratulations on trying to reinvent yourself. But I don't think it's going to work in the way they think.
That reminds me of Libra. Sorry to put you on the spot with this, but do you know what happened to Libra? Because surely that was going to be one of the bigger coins.
The next big thing. Well, they managed to piss off pretty much everyone with that, and then they rebranded it DM, and then they relocated it to Switzerland, and it's just kind of a bit of a shadow of its former self. So
I see.
It kind of exists in principle. I mean, they created a wallet whose name I forget for the time being, but that's basically the interface between them and Coinbase. But yeah, their own currency, DM. It's still there. I don't think it's going to be a huge success as they thought, and I think I think this change of direction is indicative of the fact they may abandon this.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And what's it called now? Because as you say, it was Libra. I didn't quite catch what it's changed to.
Yes, it was Libra. It's now called DM.
Oh, DM. Right. Stupid name. Okay.
As in Carpe Diem, which doesn't even makes no sense at all.
Well, it's in direct message, I thought, but. Anyway,
that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I was like, that's such a stupid name. So look, good luck to Facebook. I'm hoping they have a very prosperous future. Actually, quite frankly, I don't give a monkey's what they do because I don't like Facebook. But long may people in their 70s and 80s continue to use Facebook, and long may the youth choose better platforms that are decentralized and not trackable, traceable, and controllable.
Absolutely right. So
and the final thing I was going to say, which is really just bring it back to markets, was PIMCO made a really weird announcement. The CIO went on Bloomberg and said that he was interested in increasing their crypto position. I didn't know they had any crypto position. PIMCO, the world's largest bond fund.
Yes.
So last time I checked, I'm pretty sure crypto isn't a bond. It's definitely not a fixed income security. Well, maybe under Gary's definition, I'm not sure. But
maybe they're sick of losing money on zero, negative on negative bonds, perhaps. Could be.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is quite interesting, because if people like PIMCO start dumping government bonds, then yeah, we're in for an interesting 2022 is all I can say. But yeah, interesting comments. He wants to increase their position, and he's super interested in DeFi, and he's looking to invest, would you believe, in DeFi protocols. So again, not something I would expect it from PIMCO. Very surprised to hear that, but it just goes to show, just below the surface, just how much institutional appetite and interest there is to actually push into crypto.
Yes, indeed. It's so ahead of the curve. So this is going to be a very exciting space going forward. So excellent stuff.
Absolutely.
Excellent stuff. Well, glad your trip was successful. You got a warm reception there. That's really good. Let's go over to the markets, and we'll just have a look at the charts and see what's been going on. Let's start with the S&P, right? Because obviously I was bearish on the S&P because we had this head and shoulders pattern. We had the VIX index turning, and it looked like the markets were about to go down. And this was perfect. I mean, it looked beautiful. We had like proper symmetry. Everything was getting ready to break this neckline here. And then the market just went straight up. Now, that's unusual. That doesn't happen very often, but it did happen. The rate of trend had already slowed, so there were signs that it was turning down. But my job is not to tell the market what to do; it's to follow what the market does. And there was a risk that it was going to collapse, and that seems to have pushed to one side for the moment. So the S&P is breaking new highs. The NASDAQ seems to be ready to do the same. It's slightly behind, but it will push into a new high and keep going. The Dow is not quite as bullish, but it's still doing the same, pushing into new highs. So you might say, well, that's all great and, off to the races. But then we go back to Europe. What is happening in Europe? There's some problems in Europe that I think are going to manifest themselves over the coming months. The DAX index has got back to its trigger point, and this could still be part of a massive reversal pattern. It needs to negate and go into a new high, but it hasn't done it yet. And the FTSE is actually performing quite well. It's broken into a new high, a recent high, not an all-time high, but a new recent high, trying to extend this trend. But it's still tentative, and the Swiss market is just really reluctant to move. And this is very strange, because this was, as I say, I've said it many times, it was leading the way up. And if you sold it on the sell trigger that we pointed out, you'd still be short. You wouldn't have needed to cover. I mean, on the other ones we had to cover, but on this one, not. So very interesting. Now, what's going on in Asia? After the Evergrande situation, it looked like that was the sort of bottom of the market, in the sense that when you get really bad news, people who are short cover, because obviously they know that bad news is coming out and the media hits it, and then everyone goes, oh my God, this is terrible, starts selling, and they're just a little bit out of sync with what the market is doing. So we get this rally. So we actually got a good rally in the Hang Seng, and we got a good rally in the Chinese stock market. But although it's broken a trend line, what's the overall trend? The trend is still down. It's not up as yet. Okay, so we could push a little bit higher, but there's massive resistance here, which I was pointing out in the weekly. But I didn't put a chart, so I'm showing you the chart here. Here's the resistance at 16,440. If it gets through there, then I think I've got to, admit that it might go up quite a lot more. But it's still in a sell zone, and it's still very weak. It's still very weak relative. And as Manu's just recently said, policy decisions out there are looking very random. They need to be careful that this doesn't turn into a massive downward trend and cause all sorts of problems. Now, that does have implications for the risk-on situation, and I'll have a quick look at gold, because gold might move up in this range, or could be testing the top end of the range. Is it ready to break out? Not quite yet, I don't think. So I'm going to keep it on the back burner. Gold and silver, I'm watching very carefully. I think we're going to see some massive trends next year, and I'm waiting for the breakouts, but we haven't got them yet. Base metals have been leading the way up, but interestingly, in the last few days, they've started to come back down again. So copper, it's not a top yet, but it's matched its previous high, and it's coming off. Aluminium just absolutely collapsed, and it had a great upward trend, but it fell right out of bed. It made a spike top and then turned down. So is China slowing? That is the main question. What are these commodities telling us? Aluminium is a really strange one, because it was a nice smooth upward trend, quite what made it fall out of bed like this. I don't know. And I don't look to know really, because I'm just looking at the technicals. In its favor is we still got this upward trend that it's operating from, which was so aggressive that hasn't even managed to break it, even though it's fallen such a long way. But that's a move of note. So it's like you sit up and listen and think, why has it moved so aggressively? The Baltic Dry Index, which I'll switch over to the weekly, I'm not obsessed with the Baltic Dry Index, but it is such an important index for activity out in Asia. And as I've mentioned in the weekly, it was in 2008, it absolutely crashed. And when it crashed, the rest of the market followed. Now, there were other signals to explain why that was a significant thing. It was like one of the, excuse me, one of the metrics that sat with a lot of other metrics that indicated that there was going to be a really big move. There was a big build-up of risk, and a lot of key stocks were turning down. But it's hit its 2008 sell trigger level. So what set it all off was this 5,615 point, which it went right up to, touched, and it had fallen yesterday 31% from that high, which I now need to adjust because it's fallen a little bit more. So that is, to me, that is a very interesting outlook. The fact that it's now actually moving down. It doesn't seem to want to click on it to change it, but anyway, you get the point. The market is retracing. Now, given how high it's gone, that's warranted. You know, we could get a pullback and it still be bullish, but it's where it stopped from, how quickly it's fallen. So I'm wondering if activity is starting to decline in China, and quite rapidly. And if you look at the Evergrande stock, it's still in the doldrums, so nothing has really changed there. Now, we could go through the main tech stocks, maybe look at Microsoft very quickly, see how aggressively bullish that is, and Tesla, as you see, it's already broken out to an upside. So there was some indication that some of these markets wanted to move. Google's done the same thing, but Apple is a little bit slow to the party. I think that will follow suit. That looks okay. Amazon is just still in a range. So some have moved, some haven't. And as you mentioned, Facebook or now Meta, this has been pretty negative. So there's a mixed bag, but mainly positive when it comes to the tech stocks. But moving over to crypto, our favorite subject at the moment, what we've got here is last week we were looking at the push to the new high. And what we were saying was that the market would retrace, because this was a good move, but we would see a pullback before we get another move up to 100,000. So this is the consolidation now. The question is, how long will this consolidation last? This was the trigger level, the main upward trend. When it broke this, markets moved sideways, which is right on cue, which is fine. The altcoins have moved quite nicely, and I think this will range trade, and then we'll see a blast up. Now, whether we'll see it this week, I'm not sure. It might need to sidestep for a bit longer before it goes up. But this 53,000, 5,400 level, which I talked a lot about before it broke to the upside, could come back as support. And then we would see a move up towards 72,000, then 81 as the next resistance, and then beyond that we're looking at 100 plus. So there's a lot to play for in the crypto space, and hopefully we're gearing up for that move, very, very soon. But this consolidation was warranted, so we're expecting that last week. Some of it is a rotation into the altcoins, and some of it is just pure profit taking. But if you look at the chart of Ethereum, it's really not retraced. I like the fact that you've got this kind of block of price action where it's hit the high and it's trading in this block of a range and trying to push up. Actually, I think by the time this is out, this looks like it will be pushing towards perhaps even 4,500. So we may be ready to go a bit quicker. When we look at Ethereum, Bitcoin's looking like it's just going to consolidate a bit. So the Bitcoin Ethereum chart could well push back towards this previous high. Now, we saw this pressing up and it sort of failed and came back down again. We've got a less aggressive move going on in terms of the trend rate. It's still basically in a range. Some people are calling for this to be a top. It might be, maybe Bitcoin is going to lead the way. I can't say for sure when we're in a range like this. We need a key level to break out, and that 0.08 is the breakout level to the upside. every time it gets close to it, obviously the chances increase. So we've got to keep an eye on that. Now, with regard to the altcoins, let's look at Solana was the main one that we really liked a couple of weeks back, and it made a triangular constriction. It's broken out. It's making a consolidation very similar to Ethereum. And again, that should be pushing through a new high very soon. We've also got Polkadot, which again was something that one of our community asked for, and it's broken out. It's doing pretty well. It's near the high, and that should push into a new high in the next couple of weeks. So we've got Matic, which is very similar. Lovely triangular constriction, consolidated. It's now pushing up. And again, that should take out this 2.9 level and go over 3 and beyond. But Cardano is weird. I don't know why it's doing this. I maybe ask you, Manu, when I come out of the charts to see whether there's any reason why it should be failing like this, because I haven't looked at the fundamentals, but it's definitely sticking out like a sore thumb because everything else seems ready to go, and this one has not gone, and the patterns are exactly the same. So it's a bit of a head scratcher from a technical point of view, and we've also got some kind of weird spikes down. Like I thought that this was, sometimes on data you get like prices that are incorrect and accidentally put in, and therefore they stick out and as being strange, and this is one of them. So that's definitely an anomaly when you look at it by eye. And then we got that anomaly again where it just went straight down and looks like it's going back up again. So either somebody's trying to sort of force it down before it goes up. I don't know. I can't really guess what's happening. But I still think it will go up. I still think that this will recover because the overall trend is okay. It just seems like it wants to wait a bit before it catches up with everything else. But that was a bit of a disappointment in the way that traded, but everything else has been going very well. The last thing I will end on is the outlook for short-term interest rates, which I'm going to be including in the weekly where relevant. But before I do that, I'll look at 10-year government bonds, US government bonds. Manu mentioned, the PIMCO moving into or being interested in the DeFi and the crypto space. Well, if we look at what's happening to US 10 years, we're still looking for this 1.77 level. If that gets taken out, we are going to be pushing some higher yields very quickly. And at the same time, short-term interest rate futures, which is basically it's kind of the leading indicator, or the market uses as a bit of a leading indicator as to whether interest rates will go up in a country. So the way we look at it is if you take 100 and minus where the contract is trading, the futures contract kind of is anticipating where interest rates are going to be. Now this is, these are relatively small moves, but they're directionally important. So the fact that the short-term interest rate future was moving up, the EuroDollar future for the US was moving up, suggested interest rates would either go down or remain low. But as we know, the mood music on interest rates is starting to change, especially with that big word inflation being bandied around more and more. So this is turned down. It's turned down quite aggressively, still, well within normal parameters, but that trend looks like it's changed. So higher interest rates on the cards. And so when it comes to foreign exchange, I think we're going to see some volatility. It's only just picking up. We'll cover that in the weekly as it goes forward. But I'm expecting the dollar to be strong this year. So in broad brush terms, the dollar to rally this year, and then next year it to all unwind. Possibly as interest rates go up, maybe a little too fast. Coupled with, if interest rates go up, commodity prices are expensive, that's a double whammy. We had that in 2007 where when oil was hitting highs, the central banks raised interest rates to try and rein in inflation. And that was a double whammy to consumers. It was a double whammy to companies. Just made everything more expensive, and things were slowing down at the same time that they weren't picking up on their metrics. So that was another reason why the financial crash happened so quickly and it caused such problems. So you could argue that maybe interest rates should already be moving higher, and that's a valid point to discuss. But at the moment, we'll take this one step at a time. It looks like US dollar strength coming and ahead. But Manu, any final thoughts? Any thoughts on why Cardano's doing what it's doing?
Yeah, so look, I think what's happened is that look, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of Cardano. I've been a huge fan of Cardano really from the outset, and I have been handsomely rewarded for owning Cardano over the last couple of years. They obviously launched their Alonzo smart contract, when was it, last month, and yeah, it's as far as I'm aware, everything has gone very well. But I think if you put into context, obviously the acceleration we've seen in the uptake of Solana, what Solana's done to the NFT market, stealing market share from Ethereum, it's obviously drained some degree of liquidity from Cardano. And if you look at the market caps of the two, my goodness, they're not a million miles away from each other anymore. Also, with Polkadot launching the parachain auction, so again, they're looking to deploy their smart contract. I think suddenly some of the other Ethereum killers have suddenly woken up. And I think that's probably more of what this is. Again, I am a huge fan of Cardano. I still think it is the best third generation blockchain, maybe closely followed by Solana.
Okay.
And I think it probably will be the winner. I just think it's being sidelined a little bit because of the growth and positivity and some of the developments we've seen elsewhere. And look, crypto is fickle at the best of times. So I think that's what this is.
So just finally to say, Manu was on the State of the Markets podcast, which is something that I host, and we've had some brilliant feedback about his comments on crypto and his insights about where the market's going. So we will put links in the show notes, and there will be links for you to find on the Telegram chat coming up. So definitely have a listen to that, because it's not to be missed stuff. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next week.